Hello, boys and girls. 'Tis I, the thirsty, drenched one, the parched, and not nearly clean shaven. Anyways, I wanted to discuss the situation. A lot of modern metalheads have this belief. I don't know exactly if it just comes from ignorance or if it's just wishful thinking, or if they just want to attack, the old school, the boomers or Gen Xers that grew up at a time for metal when metal was fucking booming like dynamite. And they have this concept, or they believe they have this concept that today modern metal is so much better. The times are better, much more bands. That's the one that really tipped me off. They said there's a lot more bands today and plenty of variety. I'm like, are you someone that lived through the 80s, or have you done extensive research about the fucking 80s to say shit like that? I don't think so. I think you're full of shit and you're just trying to like one up the boomers here, or just throw a lot of people. I don't know. Some people actually apparently get off on just defending some sort of bullshit statement or some stance, and just egging people on just for kicks. And like, I don't get that. I guess it's a form of entertainment for yourself and for the other jerky boys theater. It's jerky boys theater for the lesser minds out there. But anyways, everybody wants to be right. But the facts are facts, and I feel like we gotta set these fucking records straight because it pisses me off. And if it pisses me off, I'm gonna fucking talk about it, and I'm gonna fucking go out there into internet lands and kill posers, as it were, with my words, not actions. But yeah, it's pretty sad that people today think that that the 80s maybe were some kind of primitive age, and you only had four bands that were metal, and that was it. It was Metallica, ACDC, Iron Maiden, and I don't know, whatever the fuck they think. Black Sabbath, I guess. Ozzy, yeah, Ozzy was a big one. So they think those bands were the only bands around, and nowadays we have 10,000 million bands everywhere, and you have access to all of them at the same time, from Bandcamp to fucking TikTok and Spotify and Pandora and YouTube Music Video. Anyways, fuck that. The 80s had such a great, fertile landscape for music, not just metal, rock, even synth pop, post-punk, whatever the fuck. Why is it post? Who knows? But we had The Cure and shit like that. A lot of great shit happened in the mainstream, and that's what I'm saying. Like, in the mainstream, if your mainstream is healthy, your underground is gonna be even healthier. It's gonna have wicked, inventive, creative bands trying to reach that plateau of making it to the mainstream, or just making a lot of money, or just doing it for the music, the challenge of creating original, genuine music. That is a big factor in the 80s bands. Everyone strived to be genuine. Everybody strived to give back something that you don't hear. They try to reinterpret all their influences and mix it all up, add a lot of booze to it, For example, this is a sponsor from Chile. Viva Chile. There we go. Okay, now it feels like I'm talking to the bottle. Listen, bottle. Anyways, everybody strived to be unique, to be somewhat genuine, And they were mixing fusions, elements of genres, and coming up with new genres every day, every year. You would hear these new things. Like, out of nowhere, if I can heard Napalm Death, grindcore became a thing, and it started to catch on. Lots of bands were implementing the blast beats and political rhetoric, and it was awesome. But you also had black metal coming out, bands like Possessed and whatever, Bathory. Fuck, that's a video for another day. I hate Bathory, but apparently a lot of people embrace that shit. It's just noise to me, really. Some rich cunt from, I don't know, Sweden or Norway. I don't know where the fuck he is. I don't give a fuck because it fucking sucks. I bought a vinyl just because of the artwork, and I read about it. And apparently it was good or whatever. But this artwork looks pretty cool. I'm gonna have it in my collection. I bring it home, and it was just unbelievably shitty, raw, like demo, like really shitty demo, like quality. And I'm like, why are people supporting this? This is abysmal. There's nothing to it. It's very generic. It's very unprocessed, unthought of, uncreative. It's just some guy doing some generic shit. He obviously didn't take any music lessons at all. But people loved it. You know, I understand that simplistic aesthetic because I'm a punk fan now. I'm all about the Ramones and the Clash. Well, the Clash was pretty well studied, I think, on the guitar work. But you know, Crass, you know, that hardcore early '80s stuff like GBH. I admire all that stuff. I don't like it all. You know, Black Flag. I don't get why Black Flag was a kind of a big deal. Maybe just because Rollins became such a character later on in life. I got some of his books. They're okay. Kind of interesting to hear about people's life and stuff, but that he's making a living with that. That's just amazing because Black Flag sucked, and you know Rollins' band was kind of quirky, but they had some good stuff. But he wasn't really like such a big monumental figure for me to be like, yes, he deserves to not work with us other working stiffs. Anyways, yeah. So in the '80s, everything was so fertile. It was so for people really wanted to be creative. They took music lessons. People wanted to be admired for their technical skills, which in turn gave them creative, uh, how do I say, outbursts of creativity that otherwise wouldn't have happened if they were not so disciplined with their instruments or taking lessons or you know just playing guitar 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. All that shit like really changed later on when new metal came into play and it was so easy. It was fun, sure. It was fun to play new metal because it was easy and you just were chugging and you were concentrated on making kind of like a cohesive like FM radio song basically that with chuggy beats and like breakdowns and rapping. So and of course the fashion, all that shit. It took a turn for just everything being very almost like a punk rock aesthetic, but you know you still had to have the metal to counterbalance that, and the metal in the '90s was what death metal only and black metal, and I guess power metal, cheesy, boring, over the top, operatic vocals. I don't know about dragons in Fantasyland. Nowadays, people say that there's a lot more bands, but you know I've listened to tons of bands, and I scour and I listen to there's just people online that go live and they go and they take requests, and then you hear what people are listening to nowadays. And sure, there is good stuff out there. Like I'm not denying that at all. There's some good stuff, but none of the good stuff can compare to the good stuff that happened in the '80s. The '80s was, like I said, a really big boom, and people don't want to know that, or they just want to challenge everything because they're living now. They're living in the present. I'm like, good for you, buddy. You're living in the present. Doesn't make it better. History says otherwise. And I don't know if these people just refuse or rather live in oblivion. They'd rather just close their minds to history or research because it's ADHD world and everyone just has a really small attention span. And it's, oh, yeah, fuck that. That was 40 years ago. Who cares? There's plenty more bands today. A lot more shit's happening. No, it's not. No, it's not in any way comparable. There were billions of bands in the 80s in the underground. And you didn't hear them all because you just heard the big names and a couple of songs. You didn't even listen to full albums at all because you have that ADHD, short attention span illness, hardwired in your brain. You're a victim of technology, just like we all are. But your ignorance, like you don't use it as a tool to inform yourself before you open your stupid mouth. And I have to come on here and tell you people off, and it's getting boring. Like I don't know, like what do I have to do? I'm making a fucking video and I'm arguing with you people online. Like you need to educate yourselves, man. You guys don't know what you're dismissing by not doing your proper research and analyzing what happened in the years before you were born. Metal has a long history. It's not just recent. Okay, metal didn't start with fucking Green Day and Linkin Park. Okay, it goes back to the '60s, of course. Should at least know that metal started in the late '60s. Thanks to Jimi Hendrix, Distortion, and Jimmy Page, and Mr. Tony Iommi, all that stuff, all those garage bands, and really getting on with like distorting their sound and playing around with effects and being guitar virtuosos and really digging into the blues, really studying music. Back then, they didn't have the distractions. Even in the '80s, they didn't have the fucking distractions of social media, hounding them like, oh, check notification, check notification, check notification, all day, every day, every day. It's not good. It waters things down. That's why music today is very much a carbon copy of like what the better bands that came before. Those people didn't have distractions. Those people were raised on good music since they were kids. Like, take for example, like Kirk Hammett in the thrash area scene, Rick Hunolt, Rob McKillop, yeah. Tom Hunting, uh, Gary Holt. Gary Holt is canceled, by the way. He said some positive shit about MCR, and I'm not gonna let that go. I'm gonna find a marker and put just a big X on this vinyl. Yeah, fuck Gary Holt. But anyways, those people grew up like what? When they were kids, they were listening to the Beatles. They were listening to like good musicians, like even the Beach Boys. You could say harmonizing vocals, just like old school stuff. It's great. It was all great stuff, really. And then later on, they got what? Judas Priest. They got UFO. They got Iron Maiden. And so they grew up with these influences, and they could dedicate their time to listening to full albums, collecting tapes, whatever, and of course practicing their instruments. Most people today grew up on shit music. They grew up on Slipknot. What the fuck is that? Killswitch Engage, Avenged Sevenfold, pure garbage, man. It's pure garbage. So garbage feeds garbage, and that's why today it's rare to find a really good, genuine band. A lot of bands ape, of course, what they grew up with, and some other bands ape older stuff, which they come to realize was much better. Even like if you go back to like Pantera, before Pantera, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Metallica, whatever, the big four, and other thrash bands and industrial music in the '90s, they look back, and so their sound is a derivative of better things, but it's still derivative. They don't have that genuine spark, that genuine focus, where bands want to be, completely individualistic, and they want to be recognized for their genuine efforts to not sound like everybody else. But today, most bands really do sound like each other. All like 90% of vocalists all sound the same. They all have the same inflection and the same, just structures to their melodies, and they all sound like they're mimicking each other. Why? Because they're afraid to not be, you know, supported by these newer metalheads that they're very one-dimensional. They're into a formula, and they're afraid of knowing anything else, because that's what the record industry has become since the rise of internet piracy. They've tried to homogenize things, and so that happened in the mainstream with pop music, but also with metal. So most metal bands today sound incredibly generic, and they do that on purpose. And this is the situation that is like, as of yet, we're still in a stagnated state for music, for musicians. So we are not going to hear anything as great as the 80s, because the 80s was the complete opposite. The 80s bands strove for innovation, progress, evolution of sound, evolution of fusion. That's what they stood for. Everybody. What do you think? How did this happen? These guys were raised on '70s and the new wave of British heavy metal. Iron Maiden kicked in, and Accept from Germany, Anvil, Canada, whatever. And they like took it to the whole new level. These guys were the new level of 1983. Thrash was born with this album, like regardless of what came before it, like Motorhead and Venom. All those were great, pivotal, very important influences on this. This is where it all began to really evolve. From this, you had more evolution, more progress, more fusions, more genres. So it's like you have to respect that, and you have to understand that nothing like this has happened since then. There's no new Metallica. People say like, what, Papa Roach is in new Metallica for the ages, or Slipknot, like, or Linkin Park. No, fucking Korn. No, Korn. They have something, but they don't have this. This is a true legacy. It's untouchable. Another prime example, Anthrax. They got their shit together. They were very traditional metal at first, of course, like most bands. But once Metallica came around and these guys like hung out, everything fucking changed. And these guys did an amazing debut. And I don't understand why anyone would not like Anthrax, because that would tell me that they just don't know anything about composition, guitar, and unique musicians going out there doing their thing. That tells me they're ignorant. Thrash metal. I don't have Megadeth's debut, but of course, if it wasn't for if it wasn't for Mustaine, maybe Metallica wouldn't have been so huge. I don't know. That's debatable. But yeah, even Dave Mustaine, incredible guitars, incredible songwriting, and he was like doped up, drugged up. I don't know if somebody helped him or a producer or with the songs, even though they're not conventional songs, but they're still like really, really catchy and have incredible musicianship because the guy is a fucking nutbag. His riffs are fucking out of this world, and this whole album rips. Like maybe like I don't know, Bad Omen, maybe I don't know. One of these songs I don't like, but overall this is an amazing classic. Speaking of amazing classic, where's your Metallica nowadays and where's your Master of Puppets? There's nothing out there that has this kind of status. Like these guys are basically mega, thanks to Cliff Burton, like super almost on a classical level of orchestration. All these songs are like beautiful masterpieces, and it's thrash metal. It's not even rock. It's not even Queen, where you can say, oh, pivotal, masterful, work of art band. No, these guys are hard, speed, thrash. And this album is just beautiful. It's truly for the times, for the ages. This needs to be preserved in a museum somewhere because it's incredible. And you don't have anything like that today. You have derivative, regurgitated, maybe resembling something that it's from the same genre, but nowhere near. No band today put in the effort that these guys put here. And again, Cliff Burton was the one that was studied. He studied formally. He took classes. I'm not sure exactly like classical or in composition, but he was studied in the arts. So he's the one that orchestrated everything and made everything so incredibly perfect. This album is perfection. Before they got to the top of the pinnacle, even this album, incredible. I think this was my first encounter with Metallica, actually. And when I heard it, I was like, every song is mesmerizing. It's captivating. It's structured in so many twists and turns and just sheer brutal energy. It's like, it is like riding the lightning. And you had your Call of Cthulhu. I mean, proving they can do instrumentals so well, even right here. And yeah, this guy made it happen. These guys were studying their art. This guy was taking lessons from just a tranny. This guy was like drinking a lot of beer, and this guy was, doing his thing. He wasn't. Nobody really suspected Lars to be what he later became, which is like a really weak drummer. Like here, everybody respected the entire band. This album is heralded as the #1 classic favorite for most pedestrian or regular fans of Metallica because it's undeniable. It's fucking fantastic. But it's just a little bit, a couple of notches below Master of Puppets in terms of just reality. Then, unfortunately, Cliff was gone. But Cliff laid down the foundation for this album. Jason Newsted was he was just a new kid, and the guys hazed him, and I think they were waiting for him to step up and stand up for himself and have his say within the band, within the compositions. That he should have put his foot down, and maybe the hazing wouldn't have been so brutal. But yeah, this is just another masterpiece. Not as big as Master of Puppets, but a classic in every respect. And I would say on an equal level, almost. Just a tiny bit below Ride the Lightning, because Ride the Lightning, they were just younger and hungrier and fiercer. Here they were like reaching a level of sophistication and prestige. And they even put out a video, which they said they would never do, but the video was very tastefully done, and it was very anti-political. And I have my thoughts about that. I think the CIA came down crashing on these guys because they were turning a lot of people off the military, and they were criticizing government. And when a lot of kids get into something, the government's like, "Wait a minute, here we got to do this. Is almost treason." So this is a Metallica really going for the jugular, the political jugular, and they achieved it. You can see the money. The justice is rigged, and now the CIA had to stop these motherfuckers. And they were out of ideas anyways. They did the Black Album, which is a total farce, and they started singing about just drugs again, and boogeymen under people's beds, and what else? About going on the road, and I don't know. I can't even remember the other songs because that album is a sellout. A lot of people were doing agree, and they evolved. No, they didn't evolve. They devolved, and they dumped their asses down in order to placate not only the CIA, but the mass majority of radio drones, radio lemming zombies out there that don't like their music too complicated. They don't like to think too much. They just like little catchy little familiarity, simple little riffs like AC/DC. That's why AC/DC is so huge, because they keep it simple. Metallica was the classical musicians of thrash metal. They complicated the shit out of this album, but it's amazing. Another masterpiece that has to be, conserved forever. A museum. Okay, so we're talking about underground, quasi underground, the only thrash metal band from Australia. And this was their second album. The first one was great, really formidable, incredible songwriting. And here they stepped it up the bitch. They stepped it up a bitch. They got a little bit more like prog thrash, and complicated themselves a little bit. So it wasn't as intense and raw, but it's still a very good album, very good songwriting, good riffing. Highly recommend those two releases from this band. Australian, 80s. Speaking of punk, you don't have anything like this nowadays. A real punk, maybe Idols is kind of like important in that punk aesthetic way. I don't know what they say about and stuff like this. You don't have anything like that, Kennedys. This album, this entire album, is just a classic, full on, no filler at all. The songs are all very distinctive from each other. It doesn't sound like a lot of bands are just like, a lot of their songs sound the same. These guys really went out of their way and made like very interesting, differentiating their songs from each other. Like a lot of punk bands back in the day, they kind of were the same because their musicianship was limited. But forget it, like Klaus Fluoride and the other guys in here are just phenomenal songwriters and technical players in a punk band. I've never heard anybody else like Klaus Fluoride. Hey, sorry, East Bay Ray. Klaus Fluoride is the bass player, but he's awesome. East Bay Ray is an incredible player. He's obviously studied. He took jazz lessons or blues. I don't know. He took lessons, period, for sure. And this album is incredible. It's another masterpiece to behold. I'm very glad I have this. And the artwork is phenomenal. That comes like with this stuff. Very entertaining, and also very provocative and eye-opening socio-political statements that are just true. Education, right here, friends. Suicidal tendencies. What would you say is today's equivalent to suicidal tendencies, especially the first 2 or 3 albums? You don't have anything. You have Municipal Waste, right? Iron Reagan, and those bands are fun. I like them. I did see Municipal Waste live. They were opening for Anthrax, and guess what? I was underwhelmed. They're like a standard, okay band. Nothing about them really stands out. Says yes. Not like this. This album is fucking killer. Artwork, killer. Songs, killer. 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I Die a Little Each Day, Join the Army, Possessed to Skate, Psycho, awesome song. Psycho. You had, of course, Iron Maiden. What do you have that's like Iron Maiden today? Ghost? I don't fucking think so. Ghost doesn't really like. They don't. I wouldn't say they fucking suck, but they're they're not all there. It's just okay. It's just meh. You take it or leave it. If I don't hear Ghost ever again, if I don't see or hear about Ghost, I wouldn't give a fuck. But Iron Maiden, everybody was like fully aware of Iron Maiden, wanted Iron Maiden material, merchandise, interviews, magazines, patches, shirts, everything. New album, please, now. Give it to me now. Where's the new Iron Maiden record? I want a new Iron Maiden record right now. All the time, every year. Everybody fucking loved Iron Maiden, and they were huge. Everybody loved them. They influenced so many great bands. So many people love them. For good reason. This is a true band that really honed their craft, stood out from the rest, and album after album. Just amazing stuff. This isn't even their best, but this is the one that broke them out. I mean, the artwork, of course. Jesus. That artwork. The artwork on every album. I mean, you had art and music in one package. What more do you want? You don't have this today. This is why the 80s fucking rules. Forever, you stupid plebs. Next. Out of thrash metal, out of black metal, out of death metal, you got Death. These guys, I think, started early as well. Like 83, 84, they were already heavy. Chuck was going heavy as balls. And to me, this is their master of puppets. This album is just fucking killer. Not a bad song on this. It's a little bit repetitive with the speed, but that's the trademark, right? Death metal, a lot of speed, but undeniable talent. Like Chuck Schuldiner had genuine vocals. You don't hear vocals like that from today's generic death metal world. It's all Cookie Monster vocal, easy Cookie Monster vocals. Chuck really put the effort in his guitar playing, in sounding original as a vocalist, and his compositional skills are out of this world. This is a masterpiece. Death metal. On the opposite spectrum, you also had this. What band today sounds like Crimson Glory? Probably a lot, but derivative, and it's regurgitated. This is the original stuff, you know? The artwork, fantastic. Great songs, you know, Red Sharks, Painted Skies, Mask of the Red Death, Eternal World. It's all great. And, you know, it's like power metal. You know, quasi, I guess. But you don't see things like this anymore. You don't hear about them. You don't hear about bands, you know, being this unique. This is a unique band, unique vocals. Midnight. There's a band called Midnight, but it has nothing to do with the lead vocals of Crimson Glory. I think that guy died actually. Anyways, my point is that there's a shit ton of bands in the 80s, and not all of them had like good record label support, but there was still a lot more record label support back then. They nurtured their artists. They gave them money. They put money aside for artwork. It was really a whole love fest of effort for the music. Today, bands have to do it all themselves. They barely have a budget. If they have a budget, they probably crowdfund themselves a lot, or they have mama's and papa's money helping them out to go on tour and make $5 a show or something, and you know, sell the T-shirts for $30 in order to eat. So that's a big issue. The internet piracy has decimated the natural, organic symbiosis of record labels and artists. So this is another big reason why today fucking metal sucks. Modern metal, the scene, is nowhere near as great as the 80s, and I don't give a fuck what you stupid plebs say. Over and out.